Voices compete for the first word, and the first word shapes everything that follows. The week has a voice. It arrives with urgency, with the specific, pressing, impossible to ignore quality of the inbox that has been accumulating since Friday, with the calendar that has arranged its obligations in a sequence that will begin whether the person is ready or not, with the messages that arrived over the weekend and that are now sitting in the various places waiting to be addressed. The week's voice is prepared, consistent, and reliably early. It knows how to be the first voice. It has been the first voice more Mondays than not. God also has a voice. It is quieter than the inbox. It does not push. It does not arrive with the urgency encoding that the week's voice uses. It waits for the space that the week's voice leaves, which the week's voice is careful not to leave. And the person who goes from sleep to the week's voice without pausing in between never hears the first word that was prepared for Monday before the week prepared its own. But you came here, before the week had its say, before the inbox rendered its assessment of what kind of Monday it will be, before the calendar announced its claims, before the first message of the week was opened and its tone set. You came here to the quieter voice. The one that does not compete for the first position, but that receives the person who chooses it before the competition has begun. This is Monday, May 18th, and the most important decision of this Monday morning has already been made. You chose the voice that was here before the week arrived. Now listen. His word declares in the book of John, chapter 10, verse 27, that my sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. Listen to my voice. The listening is the practice. The voice is recognizable, not because it is the loudest, because it is the one that has been listened for through the practice of the morning prayer, week after week, until the quieter voice has become familiar enough to be recognized over the competition of the week's louder alternatives. Before we enter this prayer, write in the comments right now, Lord, be the first voice I hear before the week speaks today. I choose your word over the inbox's opening. Write it as the choice that was already made by coming here, and that is now being declared, because declaring what was chosen reinforces what the choosing produced. Like this video as an act of choosing the voice before the competition has arrived. Subscribe to this channel so we can begin every week together, choosing the voice that does not compete, but that speaks first to the person who comes before the week does. And share this prayer with someone who starts every Monday already inside the week's voice, not to tell them what to do differently, to give them the space before the week where the other voice is speaking. Now let us listen for what was prepared before Monday knew what to say. Lord my God and my Father, I come before you on this Monday morning in the specific posture that listening requires. Quiet, still, not yet processing the Monday's incoming, not yet producing the Monday's outgoing. Still in the threshold between the weekend and the week, in the space that belongs to this prayer, before it belongs to anything the Monday intends to fill it with. I am here, listening, before I am required, before the demanded response, before the expected output, before the first Monday thing has established what this morning's interior will be oriented toward. Here, first. Listening for the voice that was prepared for this Monday morning before the Monday had prepared its own voice. What do you say to me this morning, Lord? Not what the inbox will say, not what the calendar will say, not what the difficult situation will say when Monday presents it in the week's fresh immediacy. What you say, the word that was prepared for this person on this Monday before the week knew what it would require, the specific, personal first word that belongs to the God who was here before Monday. Your word declares in the book of Isaiah, chapter 50, verse 4, that the sovereign Lord has given me a well-instructed tongue to know the word that sustains the weary. He wakens me morning by morning, wakens my ear to listen like one being instructed. Morning by morning, the wakening of the ear, the specific daily practiced act of having the ear oriented toward the voice of God before the day has had a chance to orient it elsewhere. That is this prayer, the morning by morning wakening. The ear being positioned to receive before the week has positioned it to respond. Waken my ear this morning, Lord. Before Monday speaks, before the first Monday thing has arrived, to which the ear's first response is owed. And Father, I want to receive something about the quality of the listening that the wakened ear produces. The listening that happens before the week speaks is different from the listening that happens inside the week's noise. The ear that is positioned before the competition begins is more open than the ear that is already fielding what the competition is saying. There is a receptivity to the pre-week listening that the week's presence gradually narrows. The morning prayer is the wide-open receptivity, the ear positioned before anything has required it to respond, before the tone has been set by the first thing, before the posture has been taken up by the week's first voice. In that specific openness, the voice that does not push can be heard. The voice that waits for the space the week's voice does not leave finds the space that was protected by the person who came here first. Your word declares in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 3 verse 10 that Samuel said, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." Speak, Lord. That is the positioning, not the closed ear waiting for specific content. The open ear, the servant posture. The specific orientation toward the voice that is not urgent, not loud, not competing, but that has been prepared for the ear that positioned itself to receive it. Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. Let me be Samuel this morning, the open-eared servant before the week has announced what it requires of the ear, here, listening, before Monday has spoken. Father, I want to pray about what God's first word for this Monday actually is. Because the first word God speaks is not a general word, not the generic spiritual encouragement that applies to all Mondays for all people in all seasons. The first word is specific. It knows the season the person is in. It has been prepared in light of what the previous week produced. It is shaped for the specific Monday of this specific person. It is the word that was prepared for the ear that came here before the week, and that belongs to the ear that was wakened morning by morning to listen. For some people on this Monday morning, the first word is, "You are loved." Not loved because the previous week demonstrated sufficient performance, not loved contingent on what this week produces. Loved before the Monday has made a single assessment of the person's worth. Loved in the specific, named, irreplaceable way that the God who calls sheep by name knows how to love. That word, received before Monday has begun to measure, changes the quality of everything Monday measures after it. The measurement is received by the person who already knows what the measurement cannot take away. For some people, the first word is, "I see you," not the generic divine awareness of human existence. The specific seeing of the person who is invisible in the week's accounting, whose contribution does not appear on the visible ledger, whose faithfulness is practiced in the private, unremarkable, unwitnessed moments that no performance review captures. I see you. The specific attending, the detailed knowing, the nothing missed awareness of the one who sees what the week's accounting leaves out. For some people, the first word is, "Be not afraid." Specifically for the Monday that is beginning to look like the Thursday that is coming, and the situation that is developing, and the conversation that will be required, and the outcome that is uncertain. Be not afraid. Not because the feared things are not real, because the one speaking is already in the feared things and is speaking from inside them to the person who has not yet arrived in them. The word from inside what the person fears changes the fear before the feared thing is encountered. Your word declares in the book of Revelation chapter 3 verse 20 that here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with them, and they with me. Hears my voice, opens the door. That is this prayer. The hearing of the voice before the door is filled with other things. The opening of the door before the week has arrived to claim the doorstep. And the one who enters is the one who will be with the person. Through every room Monday opens. And Father, I want to ask for something about how the first word received changes the quality of the first word given. Because the person who received a first word from God on Monday morning speaks differently into the day's first interactions. The first word they received, whatever form it took, becomes part of the quality of what they offer to the people the morning brings. The person who received you are loved before the Monday speaks carries a different quality into the first conversation than the person who received the inbox's opening assessment. The loved person is less defensive, more generous, less concerned with establishing their value in the first exchange because their value was already declared before the exchange began. The first conversation receives the overflow of the first word. The person who received "Be not afraid" before the Monday's difficult conversation is scheduled to happen carries something different into the meeting room. Not false confidence. The specific quality of courage that belongs to the person who was told not to be afraid by the one who is already in the room they are about to enter. The courage is not manufactured. It is the overflow of the first word. Your word declares in the book of Matthew chapter 10 verse 20 that it will not be you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you, not you speaking through you. The person who received the first word from God before Monday carries that word as a presence through which the Spirit can speak into the Monday's conversations. The words given in the day's first interactions are different when they come from the person who came here first. Not because the person is better, because the first word they received is now in them and overflowing into what they offer. Lord, be the first voice I hear before the week speaks today. I choose your word over the inbox's opening. Lord, be the first voice I hear before the week speaks today. I choose your word over the inbox's opening. And Father, I want to ask for something about how the first word of God shapes the specific way the first thing of Monday is received. Because the Monday's first thing is the first test of the first word. Whatever arrives first in the inbox, or whatever is the first conversation, or whatever is the first unexpected thing that announces itself before the day has officially begun, that first thing is received by the person who either came here first or who went straight to the week's voice. The person who went straight to the week's voice receives the Monday's first thing as the week's first word about what the Monday will be. And the week's first thing tends to set a tone that the remaining things of the day confirm rather than question. The person who came here first receives the Monday's first thing from the position of the already received. They already have a first word from God before the Monday spoke. And the Monday's first thing, however it arrives, is received by a person whose first word is not from the week, whose orientation was set by a different voice, who is less susceptible to the tone setting of the first email because the tone was already set by the one who spoke first. Your word declares in the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 23, that above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. The guarding happens before the first thing. The morning prayer is the guard. The first word from God is the gate through which everything the week says must now pass. And the gate changes what is allowed to set the interior. Lord, I want to pray now about what changes in the week when the first voice heard is God's. The perspective changes. The week that begins with the inbox's voice begins from the week's own frame. What the inbox presents as urgent is urgent. What the first message establishes as the pressing concern is the pressing concern. The week's frame, set by the week's first voice, tends to govern how everything subsequent is categorized. The week that begins with God's voice begins from a different frame, the wider frame, the frame that includes not only what the week is presenting as urgent, but what God declares as important. the frame that holds the Monday's pressing things alongside the eternal things that the Monday's voice does not mention, the frame that sees the week's events within the wider arc of what God is doing in this person and this season, rather than only within the arc of what the week itself intends to produce. From the wider frame, the Monday's first email lands differently. The calendar's obligations are received with different weight. The unexpected first thing is encountered by a person who has already been placed in the wider perspective. The same events, different frame. Because the first voice set a different frame before the events arrived to set their own. Your word declares in the book of Colossians, chapter 3, verse 1 through 2, that since you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. Set your minds before the things on earth have presented themselves in this prayer on this Monday morning. The setting of the mind on things above is the receiving of the first voice's frame before the things on earth have arrived with their own. Lord, be the first voice I hear before the week speaks today. I choose your word over the inbox's opening. And Father, I want to ask for the specific quality of the Monday that follows the first voice received, groundedness. The specific, practical, relational groundedness of the person who knows what they are standing on before the Monday's events begin to suggest what should be stood on. The ungrounded person is susceptible to the first substantial thing. If the first thing is good, the day feels promising. If the first thing is hard, the day feels threatened. The first thing determines the person's assessment of the day before the day has had the opportunity to be assessed by anything more reliable. The person's ground is underneath the first thing, rather than established before the first thing. The grounded person receives the first thing from the standing on something position. The first thing is received on top of the ground, rather than the first thing becoming the ground. The good first thing is received with appropriate gratitude rather than fragile hope. The hard first thing is received with appropriate difficulty rather than destabilizing dread. The ground is underneath it. The first voice established the ground before the first thing arrived to test it. Your word declares in the book of Luke, chapter 6, verses 47 through 48, that as for everyone who comes to me and hears my words and puts them into practice, I will show you what they are like. They are like a man building a house, who dug down deep and laid the foundation on rock. When a flood came, the torrent struck that house, but could not shake it, because it was well built. The well-built house, the foundation laid before the flood came. That is this Monday morning prayer, the foundation before the Monday arrives. The rock beneath what the Monday will build on top of it. And I want to name something about the difference between the grounded response and the reactive response that becomes visible in the afternoon of this Monday. Because by the afternoon, the morning's reception of the first word has been tested by several hours of the week's subsequent voices. And the person who received the first word from God faces a choice at every subsequent difficult thing. Respond from the ground that was laid in the morning, or react from the surface of what the afternoon produced. The grounded response is slower than the reactive one, not indecisive, slower. The person who has a ground to think from thinks from it. The question passes through the ground before it produces the response. What does this look like from the frame that was set before the Monday arrived? What does the first word say about this? What would the person who heard the voice before the week speaks say in this moment? That processing takes a moment, and that moment, the breath before the response, is the practice that maintains through Monday's afternoon what the prayer established in Monday's morning. Not a full prayer, a breath, the first voice. Before the Monday's accumulated voices have the uncontested final word, your word declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 19, verse 14, to let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my Redeemer. The meditation of the heart. That is the ongoing return to the first voice through the day. The word that was received in the morning kept active in the meditation of the heart through the afternoon's demands. The rock being returned to, the Redeemer being kept in view, not only in the morning prayer, but in the ongoing, practiced, breath-by-breath meditation that is the daily practice of the person who chooses the first voice. Father, as this prayer closes, I want to receive something that I will carry from this quiet into the Monday that is beginning. The sound, not the content of what was heard this morning, though the content is real. The quality of the voice itself. The specific timbre of the voice that is not urgent, not competing, not demanding, not pressing. The voice that does not push, that speaks into the space that was made for it when the person came before the week. The unhurried, fully attending, knows your name quality of the voice that was prepared for this specific morning, for this specific person. Carry the sound of that voice. Because the Monday will be loud, the week's voice will assert itself. The urgency encoding of the inbox will attempt to reset the interior to the week's frequency, and the person who remembers the sound of the first voice, who can return to the quality of it in a single breath, is the person who can maintain the week's proper perspective through the noise that the week's voice produces. One breath, the sound of the voice that was here before Monday, the return to the quality of the first word. That is the practice that maintains through Monday what the prayer established in the Monday's quiet. Your word declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 63, verses 1 through 2, that you, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you in a dry and parched land where there is no water. I have seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory, seen you in the sanctuary. The word of the sanctuary morning carried into the dry and parched land of the demanding week. The seeking that happened here in the sanctuary of the Monday morning prayer is what is carried into everywhere the week takes the person. The seeing of God in the sanctuary is what the person's memory holds when the land of the week becomes dry. Carry the sanctuary into Monday, Lord. The sound of the voice that was here before the week. The first word that was spoken into the listening ear before the week spoke its own. Let that be what holds through the loudness of what is coming. Lord, be the first voice I hear before the week speaks today. I choose your word over the inbox's opening. That is the declaration this Monday begins from. The first voice was God's. The first word was received before the week prepared its own. The ear was wakened morning by morning to the voice that does not compete, but that was here before the competition arrived. And the Monday that begins from that hearing carries something into every subsequent moment that the Monday that went straight to the week's voice cannot carry. The week will speak loudly, persistently, with urgency, and the person who heard the first voice this morning carries something through all of that which the week's voice cannot override. The word that was received before Monday's word, the frame that was set before Monday's frame, the ground that was laid before Monday's first thing, tested it. To everyone who prayed with me this morning, go back to the comments and write it one final time. Lord, be the first voice I hear before the week speaks today. I choose your word over the inbox's opening. Carry that into Monday. When the week's voice becomes the only voice in the room, one breath. Return to the first word. It is still there. The first voice does not retract what it said because the week got loud. Subscribe to this channel and come back tomorrow morning. We are here every day, in the space before the voice that is louder has had its chance. Share this prayer with someone who goes straight from sleep to the week's voice every Monday. Not to tell them that is wrong, to give them what was prepared before the week prepared its own word. May the Lord be the first voice you hear this morning with the specific word that was prepared for this person on this Monday before the week knew what it would say. May the frame set by the first voice hold through every loud alternative the week produces. May the ground laid in this prayer be what every Monday moment rests on, rather than what the Monday moments rest on you. And may you arrive at Tuesday with the quiet evidence of someone who heard the first voice and found it sufficient for everything the week's subsequent voices required. In Jesus' name, amen.